Hey guys, so today I'm here for 7 on Sunday. So if you guys are new to my channel or just new to the general concept of 7 on Sunday, it is a weekly prompting idea that Grace over at G-Swizzel created, where we kind of get to come together and talk about certain themes and topics and everything, and we get to pick 7 of either our least favorite or our favorite. And it's been around for about 5 months now, and it has been the most fun, and I highly recommend joining in. And the fun thing is you could do it on YouTube, and you can do it on Instagram, you could do it on a blog, you could do it on Twitter, you could do it on any type of format that you want to do, but it is really fun. And there is also a Goodreads group that has all the information that I will link down below, also with Grace's channel, because you need to check her out because she's a great YouTuber and someone that you definitely need to be watching if you aren't already. And also just to know what topics are coming out, because we get the topics a month in advance and it's just the most fun. So today's theme is our top favorite audiobooks, and I'm really excited because I actually recommended this theme to do, because I was like, let's talk about audiobooks, and now it's here and I'm really excited to talk about this. Either you can talk about your favorite audiobooks or audiobooks that you would recommend, but I'm going to recommend my favorites, so it's kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. But I am very excited about this topic, and I've actually listened to 36 audiobooks, so I have to pick 7 out of 36 to talk about, and I think it's a good margin at this point. I didn't want to do a video if I'd only listened to like 10, because then you're like, what if half of them were shit? Like, it's a bit hard, but I've got a lot of variety here. And the way that you guys are going to tell that I really do love these audiobooks is I own all of these books, but I am too lazy to get them off the shelf, so I'm just going to do a photo. But I have bought all of these ones and I love them all so much, and I'm just excited to talk about them. So the first audiobook I want to talk about is Sadie by Courtney Summers. So not that this is the most pleasant audiobook I've listened to, because the book actually has a very terrifying concept and it's not something that's meant to make you feel happy. So this book is about Sadie, and her younger sister was murdered, and Sadie thinks that she has a pretty good idea of who the murderer is, so she has been following his trail trying to find him. So that's one part of the story with her having to do this, and she goes through a lot of pretty shady shit that's really devastating. And then there's another character, and I used to know what his name was and now I have forgotten, but he has a podcast and he has been following Sadie's journey a couple of months later. One part you're hearing the podcast of her journey, but then you're actually in her point of view of this journey, and it is just very creepy, trying to figure out what's going on, and there's a lot of, again, bad things happen in this book. And the reason I recommend it as one of my favorites is because it is the most investing and interesting listening experience I've ever had with an audiobook, because there's 40 plus voices and the main character Sadie has a stutter, so they actually have the stutter in the audiobook. So it's very interesting because hearing it as a podcast, it feels like one, but then you also have the main character with the stutter and everything. It's a masterpiece of an audiobook, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it to listen to it. And it's the only way to really read this book. Like, yeah, you can read the physical version, but you're not going to have such an amazing experience with it if you don't listen to it. Next, I want to talk about Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So I loved this so much. It was one of my favorite books of last year. It is such a beautiful story, and I feel like my life changed after listening to this. But one main reason that I love it is they really do have the American accent for Alex and then the British accent for Henry, so that is very nice on the ears. But just seeing their story come alive and just seeing how vivid and lively they are with the voice of the story, I feel like it's the only way to go with this book because it's so amazing. And I actually have been wanting to reread this book, and I know I will reread it for like many years to come because it's so good, but I'm hesitant to like actually pick it up physically because like I'm scared it's not going to be as good. Like, it's going to be a great story, but I loved their voices that I almost just want to re-listen to it as an audiobook because of how good it is. Next, I want to talk about The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this was my first ever audiobook, and I'm glad because I really started off my audiobook experience with a bang. My god, I'm pretty sure there was like a whole cast of characters for this one as well, and because there are so many characters, because she's going through this life of Evelyn Hugo and all her husbands and all the Hollywood showmance and all the things that happen, like, it is great. Like, it is very lively and makes me think of like Marilyn Monroe and a whole heap of other like actresses that were part of this time, and just seeing her journey. And just Harry, like, one of the best characters ever came out of this audiobook, and that was Harry, and I just loved it. And just there are so many great themes in this story, and I definitely think that this is one to listen to. And I'm still so mad that Scribd didn't release Daisy Jones and the Six, because apparently that one's really good as an audiobook too, but I've only got the physical, so I'm kind of sad about that, because I actually listened to 3 of her books on audio because it's just such a good experience that I don't know why they don't have all of them. But just in general, anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid will be great on an audiobook, but I do highly recommend Evelyn Hugo. Next, I want to talk about Well Met by Jen DeLuca, and I really want to recommend this one because it was just such a comforty, lovely read to listen to this one, and it only took me 4 days because I remember like the month that I listened to this one, I listened to like 4 other audiobooks because my parents went to Bali, so they were gone for 2 weeks and I had to run my dad's business. So when I was packing orders for the business, I was listening to audiobooks, so I listened to a lot more. But then I started listening to them when I was doing the dishes, and then when I was putting laundry out, and just any task, I was listening to the audiobook. So I listened to 3 in 2 weeks, which I think is really great, but this one was a real highlight of that time just because it's just so nice. I like that it takes place in a Renaissance fair, and I like the hate to love romance here, and it's just so good, and it's just so lovely, and I just feel like nothing bad can happen when you listen to this. Like, it's just such a lovely and pleasant and comforting story to listen to, and I just highly recommend it. Next, I want to talk about Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and this was spectacular. I really enjoyed it. So I actually can't remember with this because I do vividly remember listening to these stories a lot driving to Newcastle. With Truly Devious, I think I finished another audiobook and then I picked this one up, so I listened to like 4 hours of this audiobook on the drive back to Newcastle, but I also remember I fell asleep for an hour, so I had to go back for what I fell asleep to. But I had a lot of fun with this audiobook, and then I think the second one I just listened to and from work in the car, and then the third one was another audiobook trip to Newcastle, so I listened to half on the way, half on the way back. So these ones have been very quick audiobooks to me, but you have to keep listening because this isn't a very interesting murder mystery, and it's so fun, and all the characters are great, and for some reason Stevie's voice is just very calming to me. So if you want like a murder mystery where everything is stress but a nice calm voice, this is the one to listen to. But it is really cool. It takes place over 2 timelines, and the mystery of what happened is actually so intense. And what's great is this is a trilogy, so every book new information gets revealed, and you think you know, but then you don't know, and just more happens and more happens. And I just found out today that there is going to be a 4th book because I thought this was going to be a trilogy. So the 4th book isn't about the Truly Devious murder case, but it is about another case that Stevie is back on, and the cover is beautiful, and I don't know why I didn't know about this. So clearly I did spend a bit of time today like getting my anticipated reads for next year like started on, because I like to just write them down so I know which month they are and when I can get excited about them. I know that we've still got 3 months of this year left, but you know, you can get prepared. But this was just really fun if you just want a really good murder mystery. Okay, next I want to talk about Romanov by Nadine Brandes. So this is one that I just picked up on a whim because I was really excited about it, but it is so Russian and it's so great. The Anastasia story, I've been obsessed since I saw not the Disney movie, but there's that animated movie that was like really cool, and I've always liked the idea of the Romanovs. And like, you know, whenever in like history you were like, you can pick your own subject, it's like, can we do the Romanovs, because like that's fun. But I've always been appreciative of the story, so reading this, it was really fun. And I know that this one was actually from the history, not from the animated movie, but it's what I think about. And what I really did appreciate about this book is they all speak in the Russian accent when they're actually speaking, but when it's just narrating, it goes back to this like English accent. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed this one because there was so much history going on, and it was really fun, but it was also a different concept, and having like a magic in the story and just having it like that little bit tweaked was a really good way to retell the story. And also their dad is so great. Like, he was such a great dad, and I really appreciated it. And even though it does go in the way of the Romanov history and the story and everything, expect that because it's a retelling of the story and it does kind of keep that there. There's still a lot of interesting things that do end up happening, so I just had fun with it. Mainly how they narrate it is really good, but the story is also really fun. Okay, I actually had such a hard trouble trying to pick one more because I had 3 options I was moving between, and it was really annoying because like I want to talk about all of them, but I can only talk about one. So I ended up picking The Kiss Quoten by Helen Huang, just because this was again just a really nice contemporary to listen to. And honestly, my love for adult contemporaries really grew listening to audiobooks, and now I just buy them all the time, and I have so many on my shelf now. Like, the section's like this big, before there was nothing, and now there's some like substantial size to that. So I have been having so much fun with it. But this was again one of the earlier ones that I listened to. I loved Stella, and I loved Michael, and I just loved the romance, and I liked that we got the autistic rep, and then having the Michael's character being a male escort. Like, it's all very interesting dynamics here that we've got to kind of follow along. And The Bride Test, which was a sequel, wasn't as good. Like, we had another autistic character, but kind of a different autism. These are books that I would definitely recommend reading and listening to, but it's just again having some nice fluffiness in my life because it was just great. So guys, that is all the audiobooks that I recommend. I haven't actually been listening to audiobooks as much of late just because the slump's working its way into audiobooks too now that I just listen to music in the car more times than not. And I do have a lot on my list. Like, I think there's like 40 audiobooks that I've saved that I'm like, I want to listen to it. I'm like, I don't know when it's happening. I do definitely think audiobooks are a great way to read, and you do end up reading more when you're listening to a book and then reading a physical book. Like, it's just a great idea that audiobooks were invented. But anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed my video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!